एक ऐसे मिलिट्री ऑपरेशन की कल्पना कीजिए जो सुनने में ही नामुमकिन लगे। एक ऐसा मिशन जो आज के दौर में जंग लड़ने के तौर तरीकों को पूरी तरह से बदल कर रख दे। तो चलिए, आज इसी ऑपरेशन की एक-एक परत को खोलकर देखते हैं।
सोचिए, सिर्फ 48 घंटे, दुश्मन की सरहदों के मीलों अंदर, और मिशन अपने एक पायलट को सही सलामत वापस लेकर आना। ये कोई हॉलीवुड की फिल्मी कहानी नहीं है, बल्कि मॉडर्न मिलिट्री स्ट्रैटेजी का एक जीता जागता सबूत है।
ठीक है, तो चलिए इस मामले की गहराई में उतरते हैं। हम ईरान में हुए एक बेहद मुश्किल अमेरिकी सर्च एंड रेस्क्यू मिशन को डिकोड करेंगे। इससे ये समझने में मदद मिलेगी कि आज के समय में जंग कैसे लड़ी और जीती जाती है।
ये कोई सीधा साधा बचाव का मिशन नहीं था, बिल्कुल नहीं। ये एक मल्टी लेयर्ड ऑपरेशन था, जिसमें टेक्नोलॉजी, स्ट्रैटेजी और धोखे की कई परतें एक साथ काम कर रही थीं। आइए एक एक करके इन लेयर्स को समझते हैं।
किसी भी कामयाब मिशन की बुनियाद होती है सही और सटीक जानकारी, और इस ऑपरेशन की पहली और सबसे जरूरी लेयर थी रियल टाइम इंटेलिजेंस, मतलब दुश्मन के इलाके से पल पल की खबर हासिल करना। अब मजेदार बात यह है कि कैसे अलग अलग सोर्सेस से मिली जानकारी को एक साथ जोड़ा गया था। इसमें CIA के जमीनी जासूस थे, सैटेलाइट से निगरानी हो रही थी, आसमान में लगातार ड्रोन उड़ रहे थे और साइबर स्पेस टेक्नोलॉजी का भी इस्तेमाल हो रहा था। मतलब हर मुमकिन तरीके से पायलट की लोकेशन को ट्रैक किया जा रहा था। मिलिट्री की भाषा में इसे कहते हैं नेटवर्क-सेंट्रिक वॉरफेयर। इसका सीधा सा मतलब है कि हर सिपाही, हर सेंसर और हर हवाई जहाज सब एक ही इंफॉर्मेशन नेटवर्क से जुड़े होते हैं। इससे होता यह है कि जबरदस्त अवेयरनेस रहती है और तेजी से सही फैसले लिए जा सकते हैं।
अब देखिए, सिर्फ जानकारी होना ही काफी नहीं था, उसे एक्शन में बदलने के लिए हवा में एक पूरी की पूरी टीम तैनात थी। इस मिशन की अगली लेयर थी अलग अलग तरह के एयरक्राफ्ट्स के बीच एक बहुत ही कॉम्प्लेक्स तालमेल बिठाना।
हवा में मौजूद इस टीम में हर किसी का एक खास रोल था। जैसे A-10 वॉर्थॉग का काम था जमीनी हमला करना, F-35 स्टेल्थ फाइटर का काम था हवाई सुरक्षा देना, HH-60 पेवहॉक रेस्क्यू के लिए था, और KC-130 हरक्यूलीज हवा में ही बाकियों को फ्यूल दे रहा था। यह एक इंटीग्रेटेड एयर कॉम्बैट सिस्टम का परफेक्ट एग्जाम्पल है। जंग सिर्फ हथियारों से नहीं, दिमाग से भी लड़ी जाती है, और इस मिशन की तीसरी लेयर यही थी, साइकोलॉजिकल और धोखे की स्ट्रैटेजी, जिसका मकसद था दुश्मन को पूरी तरह से कंफ्यूज कर देना। इसे कहते हैं इंफॉर्मेशन वॉरफेयर। इसमें होता यह है कि गलत जानकारी और धोखे का इस्तेमाल करके दुश्मन के कमांड और कंट्रोल सिस्टम में गड़बड़ी पैदा की जाती है, ताकि वो गलत फैसले लें। इस केस में ईरान की सर्च टीमों को जानबूझकर गलत दिशा में भटकाया गया। अब बात आती है असली एक्शन की, जमीनी कार्रवाई की। पूरी जानकारी और हवाई सुरक्षा के बीच स्पेशल फोर्सेस के कमांडोज हेलीकॉप्टर से उतरे और पायलट तक पहुंचने के लिए उस बेहद खतरनाक इलाके में घुस गए। ये एक बहुत ही हाई रिस्क ऑपरेशन था।
पायलट को सेफली निकालने के बाद भी मिशन खत्म नहीं हुआ था। नहीं, अभी एक आखिरी और बहुत जरूरी काम बाकी था, और वो था डैमेज कंट्रोल, मतलब अपने पीछे कोई भी सुराग नहीं छोड़ना।
रेस्क्यू के बाद उन्होंने एक हैरान करने वाला काम किया। उन्होंने अपने ही गिरे हुए प्लेन को पूरी तरह से तबाह कर दिया। अब सवाल यह है कि ऐसा क्यों किया गया? ताकि दुश्मन सेना उस एडवांस अमेरिकी टेक्नोलॉजी को अपने कब्जे में ना ले सके और उसकी नकल ना कर पाए। टेक्नोलॉजी को सीक्रेट रखना सबसे बड़ी प्राथमिकता थी।
तो ये जो हमने अभी देखा, वो मॉडर्न मिलिट्री पावर का पीक है, उसकी सबसे ऊंची चोटी है। तो अब जो सबसे बड़ा सवाल उठता है वो ये है, इस मामले में भारत कहाँ खड़ा है?
तो चलिए अब नजर डालते हैं भारत की मौजूदा मिलिट्री कैपेबिलिटीज पर। भारत इस रास्ते पर तेजी से बढ़ तो रहा है, लेकिन अभी वो एक पार्शियल कैपेबिलिटी यानी आंशिक क्षमता वाले स्टेज में है। आइए इसकी ताकत और कमियों दोनों को समझते हैं। भारत की नींव काफी मजबूत है। हमारे पास एक ताकतवर एयरफोर्स है, DRDO जैसी स्वदेशी टेक्नोलॉजी बनाने वाली संस्था है, ISRO की जबरदस्त सैटेलाइट कैपेबिलिटी है, और रफाल और S-400 जैसे मॉडर्न प्लेटफॉर्म्स भी हैं। यहां तक कि नेटवर्क सेंट्रिक सिस्टम भी पहले से मौजूद हैं। लेकिन दूसरी तरफ कुछ बड़ी कमजोरियां भी हैं जिन्हें नजरअंदाज नहीं किया जा सकता, जैसे एक यूनिफाइड AI बेस्ड कमांड सिस्टम का न होना। अमेरिका की तरह दुनिया भर में हमारे मिलिट्री बेस नहीं है। एक खास स्टेल्थ और रेस्क्यू फ्लीट की भी कमी है, और साइबर स्पेस और बैटलफील्ड का पूरा इंटीग्रेशन अभी होना बाकी है। और हाँ, नौकरशाही की वजह से फैसले लेने में देरी भी एक बड़ी चुनौती है। तो अब सवाल यह है कि आगे का रास्ता क्या है?
भारत को ये जो कैपेबिलिटी गैप हैं उसे भरने के लिए आखिर करना क्या होगा?
तो देखिए, भविष्य का रोड मैप कुछ ऐसा हो सकता है। सबसे पहले, लाइव खतरों का पता लगाने के लिए एक एआई बेस्ड वॉर ब्रेन बनाना। दूसरा, इंटीग्रेटेड थिएटर कमांड बनाना, ताकि आर्मी, नेवी और एयरफोर्स एक कमांड के नीचे काम करें। तीसरा, देश में ही स्टील्थ और स्पेशल रेस्क्यू सिस्टम बनाना। चौथा, मिलिट्री सैटेलाइट्स के जरिए स्पेस में अपनी बादशाहत कायम करना। और आखिर में पांचवा, तेज फैसलों के लिए एक मजबूत पॉलिटिकल विल यानी राजनीतिक इच्छा शक्ति बनाना।
अच्छा, अगर एक अंदाजे की बात करें, एक रियलिस्टिक टाइमलाइन की, तो बेसिक इंटीग्रेशन में 5 साल, एडवांस्ड एआई वॉरफेयर तक पहुंचने में 10 साल और अमेरिका के लेवल की कैपेबिलिटी हासिल करने में 15 से 20 साल लग सकते हैं। हाँ, ये जरूर है कि एआई सिस्टम इस टाइम को 30 से 40% तक कम कर सकते हैं।
तो इस पूरी बातचीत का, इस पूरे एनालिसिस का निचोड़ क्या है? जंग के भविष्य के बारे में हमें इससे क्या सीखने को मिलता है? भविष्य का युद्ध 4 चीजों का खेल है: आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस, डेटा, स्पीड और इंटीग्रेशन। बस यही इस पूरी चर्चा का सार है।
यानी वो जो अमेरिकी मिशन था, वो सिर्फ एक पायलट को बचाने के लिए नहीं था। असल में वो आने वाले समय के युद्धों का एक ब्लूप्रिंट था, एक खाका था कि लड़ाइयां आगे कैसे लड़ी जाएंगी।
और यहीं पर आकर हम एक बहुत बड़े सवाल पर रुक जाते हैं। क्या भारत डेवलपमेंट के पारंपरिक रास्तों को फांदकर एक लंबी छलांग लगाकर सीधे भविष्य के युद्ध के लिए खुद को तैयार कर सकता है? और इसमें नई टेक्नोलॉजीज गेम को कैसे बदल सकती हैं?
A U.S. military transponder pings, just momentarily from deep inside Iranian airspace, and then bam, the telemetry goes completely dark.
Just a total blackout.
Right, total blackout. And from the second that signal drops, this highly classified 48-hour operational window opens up.
Yep.
And the sole objective here is locating and extracting a downed United States pilot before adversarial forces can reach the crash site.
Which is an incredibly narrow window.
Oh, absolutely. So our sources today detail the factual, really granular anatomy of this specific search and rescue operation, which it was actually executed under Donald Trump's administration.
Yeah.
And we're using this mission as like a diagnostic tool.
Yeah, it serves as the perfect diagnostic tool, honestly, because a rescue mission in hostile territory, it stress tests every single layer of a nation's military infrastructure.
Right.
You aren't just deploying a helicopter, you are literally engaging an entire continental defense grid.
Okay, so that is the mission for this deep dive. Whether you follow defense strategy or track emerging tech, or, if you're just looking to understand how massive organizations operate under extreme pressure, this analysis cuts straight to the core of modern power.
It really does.
We're going to dissect the specific architecture of that 48-hour extraction and then use that baseline to evaluate the future of global warfare. Specifically, we'll examine what the sources say about India's current military standing, right? And their roadmap to achieving this same level of capability.
Because the mechanics of conflict have fundamentally shifted. I mean, the old metrics like counting tanks or troops or even fighter jets, they're rapidly becoming obsolete.
Right, which brings us to the core analogy we should really keep in mind as we unpack this.
Yeah.
Based on the notes, modern warfare operates like this massive, invisible nervous system.
That's a great way to put it.
Right, so the actual commando kicking in the door or pulling the pilot from the wreckage, they're just the fingertip. The brain, the optic nerves, the processing centers, they're scattered across cyberspace, low Earth orbit, and, command centers thousands of miles away.
Exactly. And to understand the future of that nervous system, we have to look at how this specific extraction succeeded.
Okay, let's unpack this.
So the source material outlines this operation as a definitive example of what they call multi-layer warfare. And the foundation of that isn't kinetic firepower, it's network-centric warfare.
Which means what, practically?
It means long before the extraction team even entered Iranian airspace, this immense web of intelligence gathering was already established.
Okay.
You have the CIA, satellite constellations, and persistent drone surveillance all overlapping. And they're creating this real-time dynamic map of the battle space.
Let's focus on the mechanics of that network for a second, because we aren't just talking about analysts looking at satellite photos, right?
Yeah.
Like passing coordinates over a radio.
No, not at all.
The sources really emphasize real-time integration. So how is that data actually flowing from, say, a drone over Tehran to the team tasked with the rescue?
Well, it relies on advanced tactical data links. So the drone isn't just sending video back to a base. It's feeding raw sensor data into a centralized architecture.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then it instantly fuses that video with signals, intelligence like intercepted enemy communications and orbital tracking. It creates a unified live picture.
So with all one cohesive thing.
Exactly. The network itself operates as a primary weapon. It blinds the adversary while giving the extraction team this God's eye view of every single threat within 100 miles.
And that digital foundation is what enables the physical layer.
Yeah,
right?
100%.
Because the sources detail the integrated air combat system that was deployed for this rescue. They didn't just send in, a fleet of Blackhawks and hope for the best.
No, the airframe package was highly specialized. You have the A-10 Thunderbolt II, the F-35 Lightning II, the H-860 Pavehawk, and the KC-130 Hercules.
So let's break down how those specific assets interlock, starting with the F-35. Because in mainstream discussions, the F-35 is almost always reduced to just being a stealth fighter.
Right, which completely misses its primary function in a scenario like this.
Right.
I mean, yes, its low observable stealth characteristics allow it to penetrate Iranian airspace undetected, but its real value is as an airborne data hub and electronic warfare platform.
Interesting.
The F-35 is conducting sensor fusion. It's absorbing all that network data we just talked about, identifying Iranian anti-air radar emissions, and quietly managing the airspace to protect the rest of the package.
It's basically the quarterback of the operation.
Exactly.
And while the F-35 is managing the invisible threat, the A-10 provides the brute force.
Yeah.
The A-10 is, it's built around a massive rotary cannon. It's essentially a flying titanium bathtub designed for low-altitude, close air support.
Yeah, it provides unmatched loiter time and ground suppression. So if adversarial ground forces converge on the downed pilot's location, the A-10 is there to physically dismantle that threat.
And then you have the H-860 Pavehawk.
Right, which is the specialized extraction vehicle that actually descends into the landing zone to recover the pilot.
And this entire package is kept in the air by the KC-130, which is handling mid-air refueling. Because remember, you have a 48-hour operational window.
Yeah, meaning these aircraft cannot land at a friendly forward operating base to refuel. They have to operate continuously.
Which is wild. The logistics of mid-air refueling in a contested environment are just staggering.
Oh, it's incredibly complex. You have one asset suppressing ground threats, one managing the electronic spectrum, one executing the physical rescue, and one acting as a flying gas station.
And they're all communicating seamlessly without triggering enemy early warning systems.
Precisely.
Now, there's this one really specific detail the sources mention about the extraction phase under the heading of damage control.
Ah, yeah, the scuttling.
Yeah. During the mission, U.S. forces deliberately destroy their own aircraft on the way out to prevent the enemy from capturing the technology.
They did.
And the immediate comparison that comes to mind is, like, burning the getaway car after a heist to destroy the physical evidence.
That's a good way to look at it.
But an aircraft is a multi-million-dollar piece of hardware. What specific technology are they protecting that actually justifies scuttling their own asset in a combat zone?
Well, they're protecting the integrity of that exact nervous system we were just discussing. I mean, the physical airframe, the metal, and the engines, that's replaceable.
Okay, so what isn't replaceable?
What they cannot afford to lose are the cryptographic keys, the frequency-hopping communication arrays, and the proprietary data links. If an adversary recovers an intact communications module, they can reverse engineer the protocol.
Ah, so they figure out how the brain talks to the fingertip.
Exactly. And once they understand your network architecture, they can introduce false data, jam your frequencies, or quietly monitor your secure communications in the next conflict.
Wow.
Destroying a high-value aircraft is standard protocol because the strategic cost of a compromised network infinitely outweighs the financial cost of the hardware.
That makes total sense.
Yeah, the military utilizes these zero-eyes functions which wipe the digital architecture of the aircraft the moment it's compromised, and that's followed by physical destruction.
Which really highlights the central thesis of the source material. The physical extraction, the helicopters, the A-10s. None of that operates without the invisible battle happening simultaneously.
Not a chance.
The notes classify this under information warfare and deception ops. So how does deception play out on a digital, network-centric level during a mission like this?
Well, it operates through active misdirection and electronic attack. To successfully extract a pilot deep inside a nation like Iran, which possesses a very sophisticated, layered air defense network, you cannot simply fly in unnoticed.
Right, they're looking for you.
Exactly. You have to actively manipulate what their radar operators are seeing on their screens. This involves spoofing radar signatures, creating phantom tracks that look like incoming aircraft hundreds of miles away from the actual rescue zone, and just drowning out their communication networks with electronic noise.
So you are actively manipulating their OD loop, their ability to observe, orient, decide, and act.
Exactly. While they are busy scrambling interceptors to chase ghosts in the north, the HH-60 is executing the rescue in the south.
You're forcing the adversary to process a massive amount of conflicting data, which basically paralyzes their decision-making.
And what makes this specific mission the benchmark is the sheer scale of the live integration. You had this continuous 48-hour operation integrating space-based surveillance, cyber warfare, and kinetic air assets, and it's all being monitored live from the White House via secure satellite uplinks.
Right. The White House literally has a live feed of the entire battle space processed through multiple intelligence agencies simultaneously.
It's unbelievable.
But looking at the sheer scale of the data manipulation required here, it raises a critical question for you, the listener, about the balance of modern forces. Are we reaching a threshold where the cyber and deception capabilities, like the hackers and the network architects, are actually more vital to mission success than the special forces operators on the ground?
What's fascinating here is that while the kinetic force is the irreversible final action, yes, the hierarchy of value has fundamentally shifted toward data dominance.
Interesting.
Without the cyber penetration, the electronic warfare, and the real-time satellite tracking, raw physical firepower is completely blind. A highly trained extraction team will not survive an approach if the enemy's integrated air defense system tracks them from the border.
So the digital deception creates the physical corridor.
Exactly. The data is what dictates survival.
Okay, so if flawless, real-time, multi-domain integration is the absolute gold standard, it exposes a massive vulnerability for nations that haven't achieved it.
Oh, huge.
And this is exactly where the source material pivots. It takes this U.S. operation in Iran as the benchmark and applies it directly to India. The text objectively evaluates India's current military infrastructure, and it classifies it in what they call a partial capability stage.
And the evaluation is very nuanced. It acknowledges that India possesses formidable individual assets. I mean, they operate a highly capable Indian Air Force. They have the Defense Research and Development Organization, DRDO, producing indigenous technology.
Right.
And they have a sophisticated space agency in ISRO, capable of launching advanced military satellites.
And their kinetic hardware is top tier. The sources highlight their deployment of French-built Rafale Omnirol fighters and the Russian-built S-400 Triumphs air defense systems. These are individually exceptional pieces of technology, right?
Yeah.
The S-400 is arguably one of the most lethal surface-to-air missile systems on the planet.
Oh, yeah. It can track stealth targets at extreme ranges. The kinetic hardware is definitely not the issue. The critical vulnerability lies in the connective tissue.
It sounds like, having all the most expensive puzzle pieces, the jets, the satellites, but missing the picture on the box to snap them together.
That captures the friction perfectly. Because think about it. The S-400 uses a Russian digital architecture. The Rafale uses a French architecture. Indian satellites use an indigenous architecture.
Oh, wow.
Integrating those disparate data streams into a single, cohesive, real-time tactical picture is an incredibly complex engineering challenge.
I can imagine. The sources actually outline 5 critical gaps in India's current capability compared to that U.S. benchmark.
Yeah, let's go through them.
First, they lack a real-time integrated command system powered by AI. Second, they lack the global network of military bases required for power projection.
Right.
Third, they don't have a specialized fleet dedicated purely to high-risk stealth extraction operations. Fourth, they haven't achieved full cyber, space, and battlefield integration.
And the fifth gap is perhaps the most critical, and it isn't even technological, it's structural. The source highlights bureaucratic delay as a primary factor affecting decision speed.
I want to push on that for a second. We often think of bureaucracy as just an annoyance, filling out forms in triplicate. But in the context of multi-layered warfare, how does administrative red tape functionally cause a mission to fail?
Because it creates fatal lag in that OD loop we discussed earlier.
Okay, walk me through that.
Imagine a scenario where an Indian intelligence satellite detects an adversary moving a mobile ballistic missile launcher. In a seamlessly integrated system, that data flows instantly to a central command. An AI flags it as a Tier 1 threat, and a strike package is authorized and launched in minutes.
But with bureaucratic delay.
The satellite imagery has to be processed by one agency, sent to a separate branch for analysis, routed through a chain of command for verification, and then presented to a civilian authority for strike approval.
Oh, man.
By the time the political and military bureaucracy reaches a consensus to authorize an airstrike, the missile launcher has moved, or the pilot has been captured. In a warfare environment dictated by algorithms and hypersonic weapons, hours of bureaucratic friction is a fatal vulnerability.
Because speed is power.
Speed is indistinguishable from power.
So, knowing that the lack of integration and decision speed are the primary vulnerabilities, how does a massive entrenched state apparatus actually fix that?
Yeah.
The sources provide a very specific 5-step strategic roadmap for India to build what they term a war brain.
Yeah, and the roadmap begins with establishing that overarching digital architecture. Step 1 is the creation of an AI-based war brain, which the source specifically refers to as the AI.3rd IYE vision.
The third eye.
Right. The objective is universal connectivity. Every kinetic asset, every radar station, every naval vessel feeds its raw data into a centralized artificial intelligence system.
So the AI is acting as the ultimate aggregator. It filters out the noise. Instead of human analysts manually cross-referencing satellite photos with intercepted radio chatter, the AI identifies the threat pattern instantly and presents the commander with a unified operational picture.
Exactly. Which leads directly to Step 2, which tackles the structural bureaucracy, establishing an integrated theater command.
Right, because historically the Army, Air Force, and Navy operate in silos, planning parallel campaigns and fighting for funding.
An integrated theater command structurally forces these branches to merge under a single operational commander for a specific geographic region.
So you break down the interbranch rivalries by forcing them to share the same nervous system.
Precisely. Step 3 focuses on hardware independence, developing indigenous stealth and rescue systems. If you rely entirely on imported technology, you are beholden to foreign supply chains during a conflict.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The roadmap highlights the need for India to develop its own equivalent of the F-35, like their AMCA program, and specialized extraction platforms.
Then step 4 is achieving space dominance. The modern battle space is completely reliant on low Earth orbit. India has to aggressively expand its constellation of dedicated military satellites to ensure persistent, unblinking surveillance.
And secure, encrypted communications across the entire hemisphere. You cannot fight a multi-domain war if your satellites are jammed or destroyed.
And step 5 circles back to the human element, fostering the political will for fast decisions. Because the political apparatus has to reform its oversight mechanisms to actually match the speed of the technology.
But re-engineering a military of that size requires an immense temporal investment. The sources provide a phased timeline for this roadmap.
Yeah, let's look at the timeline.
They project basic integration taking roughly 5 years. Reaching an advanced stage of AI warfare capability will take 10 years, and to achieve the seamless U.S.-level multi-domain capability demonstrated in that Iranian extraction, that's estimated to take 15 to 20 years.
See, the timeline is where the source material makes a fascinating but highly ambitious claim. It argues that by aggressively implementing the AI.3rd war brain architecture from the top down, India could theoretically reduce that 15 to 20-year timeline by 30 to 40%.
Right.
It claims software can help them bypass traditional developmental decades. But here's where it gets really interesting and maybe a bit ambitious. Can an AI system truly leapfrog decades of development? I mean, an artificial intelligence system, no matter how advanced, cannot physically manufacture a stealth fighter faster, nor can it legally sign the paperwork to overhaul a bureaucracy.
It's true.
Is there a danger to relying entirely on software to fix hardware and bureaucratic problems? How does software leapfrog time?
Well, the source's core conclusion here is that it accelerates the timeline by eliminating the traditional trial and error phase of integration.
Okay.
Historically, militaries build the hardware first, deploy it, and then spend a decade figuring out how to make the Navy's new ship talk to the Air Force's new jet. It requires endless joint exercises and structural adjustments.
So you build the body and then spend years teaching it how to walk.
Precisely. The argument the source makes is that by building the AI warbrain first, You create a synthetic digital twin of your future military. The AI tests the integration protocols, identifies the bureaucratic bottlenecks, and finalizes the data link architecture in software before the physical hardware is even manufactured.
Oh, I see. So the AI acts as a universal translator. When that indigenous stealth fighter finally rolls off the assembly line in a decade, it isn't entering a disjointed ecosystem. It plugs directly into a mature, highly optimized digital nervous system.
Exactly. The source essentially boils modern defense down to a formula. Future battles equal AI plus data plus speed plus integration.
If the underlying digital architecture is flawless, the kinetic hardware operates at maximum lethality from day one.
Yeah, you bypass the friction of human interagency communication, which is where the bulk of development time is usually lost.
Okay, so synthesizing everything we've pulled from these sources today, we began by analyzing a 48-hour rescue operation in Iran. What that operation demonstrates is that modern supremacy is no longer defined by the sheer volume of metal you can put on a battlefield.
No, not anymore.
It's defined by the speed and security of your digital nervous system. The capability to process information, deceive your adversary's sensors, and execute decisions faster than their bureaucracy can react is the ultimate weapon.
And the implications of that formula extend far beyond military strategy. For the listener, the necessity for a centralized war brain is mirrored right now in the civilian sector.
Oh, for sure.
Global supply chains, financial institutions, multinational tech firms, they're all facing the exact same pressure to integrate disparate data streams and eliminate bureaucratic lag.
The OD loop applies everywhere. If your corporate decision-making requires 3 weeks of committee approvals and your competitor utilizes an AI-integrated network to identify market shifts and execute a strategy in 3 hours, you lose.
You lose. It doesn't matter if you have a better product, just like it doesn't matter if you have a better fighter jet. If the nervous system is slow, the organism dies.
In every high-stakes environment, data dominance and velocity are the metrics of survival.
Absolutely.
Before we wrap up this analysis, I want to leave you with a provocation that builds on the trajectory of this source material. We've established that the ultimate benchmark for global powers is the development of a flawless, AI-driven war brain.
Right. A system capable of synthesizing global data, perfectly predicting threats, and executing multi-domain operations instantly.
But what happens to the nature of human conflict when two peer adversaries, both possessing equally advanced AI war brains, face off?
That's a terrifying thought. It introduces the concept of hyperwar, where the speed of engagement completely surpasses human cognitive limits.
Exactly. Does it lead to an unbreakable technological stalemate, where both AI systems perfectly predict and counter each other's deceptions before a single shot is even fired?
That would be the best-case scenario, honestly.
Or does warfare escalate so rapidly, fought entirely at the speed of algorithms, that by the time the human leaders in the White House or New Delhi are even briefed on the crisis, the AI has already fought, concluded, and won or lost the war?
Wow.
When the nervous system moves faster than the consciousness of the person it belongs to, who is actually in control of the outcome, it's a fundamental question about the future of human agency.
It really makes you analyze the systems operating around you. The invisible architecture truly dictates the physical reality.
It really does. Thank you for joining us as we unpack the architecture of modern power. Keep digging, keep questioning, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.